The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it, New York, New York.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network and the X Zone Broadcast Network and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, the Pacific Rim, Australia. And now, if you see our coverage map, you see all of Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. If you'd like to give us a call, toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. That is toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Before I get to our final guest of tonight's show, X-Zone Nation, I have to tell you of something that just drove me up the wall. And it takes a lot for me to get driven up the wall, usually a car. But just imagine this. I received a press release, or a prediction release from psychic Elizabeth Joyce yesterday afternoon, about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and in the prediction sheet, she had all these different predictions, except the one that would have proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that she was truly psychic. Guess which one it was? That's right, the earthquake that happened last evening in California and Mexico, 7.2 magnitude earthquake, and she missed it. So if you go to www.xzonetv.com, I did an X-Zone news flash, and it's up on our video at www.xzonetv.com. You know what I'm going to do for you, X-Zone Nation? When we come back from the news at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to play it for you, just in case you're driving in your car somewhere and you can't get home right away, but it's really eating at you that you've got to hear it. I'll play that during the third segment when we come back from the news. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is the reason I played New York, New York when we came back. Her name is Francine Trevens, and she is in the Big Apple. She told me before we went on air, less than 2 blocks away from the big department store. Can you believe that? The Big Apple. Francine, welcome to the X-Zone. How are things in the beautiful Big Apple of New York City?
Hot and sunny today.
Reminds me of a girl I once went out with.
Good for you.
You are the author of many books, many poems, plays, but when we come back from the commercial break that we're going to have to take in a very short minute and a half from now, I'd like to talk to you about story of fairies, elves, and little people, as well as something called Imagics. How does that sound?
Sounds great to me.
Now,
They're my books.
Yeah. Now, of course, yeah. Talk about self-publishing here, eh? Listen, before we go to the break, I have to ask you, are you a believer in all things paranormal?
I have questions about some, but I know that there are things out there we don't know yet.
Sounds like a plan to me. Stand by, Francine. Exonation,
Okay.
Francine Trevens is our very special guest. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the paranormal and Imagics when we come back on the other side with Francine. If you'd like to give us a call, toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And to see my news flash about Elizabeth Joyce and her predictions, which she sent out yesterday afternoon but missed the big earthquake last evening. How she did that, God only knows. And even God's not sure. In fact, I'm expecting an email from him later on asking me if I have any idea how she did it. And to be honest with you, I don't. We'll be back on the other side of this break. But you can go to www.xzonetv.com. I'll be back. Don't go away.
I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep.
Francine Trevens is our special guest. And Francine, what was your first encounter with the paranormal?
Well, when I was a kid, apparently, I don't remember this, but my mother told me, I used to have convulsions whenever I cut a tooth, and then I'd fall asleep, and when I woke up, I would tell her that I had this kind of strange nightmare, and whatever nightmare I told her, she claimed 90% of them came true. But I didn't know that was paranormal. I just thought that was normal.
Yeah, it's funny because most kids call normal what us grown-ups, or most grown-ups call paranormal, but to them it's very real. My daughter, Belinda, had imaginary friends. Now, were they imaginary?
Everybody?
Yeah. And I was not one to say, well, no, there's no one there, sweetheart. Like, if you see them, that's okay. I think every child sees what adults don't see anymore, but like I said, kids call what we call paranormal normal. Tell me about Imagics.
My family apparently had strange things happening to them for over 100 years. The first time I heard of anything was something that happened in around 1890 when my grandmother was in Russia, and she was trying to walk, and suddenly she said there was she couldn't see it, but there was a wall. She couldn't go forward. So she crossed the street and went down a little alleyway, and 2 minutes later, the Cossacks came, and she would have been destroyed had she not hit that imaginary wall, or invisible wall anyway. And she and I started exchanging stories of weird things that had happened to us. And when I grew up, very much up, I started writing stories about them, and I fictionalized a lot of it because it was about my family. There were people alive that might be insulted or hurt or exposed by what I wrote, so I made it into a bunch of short stories. I sold several of them in various places, and then put the book together and called it Imagics and Other Family Stories. And that's how it came about. It was fictionalized versions of actual things that happened. The only absolutely true story in the book is the very last one, which is the return of my father's ghost to his house. And that's how it is.
What has been the most paranormal experience that you have ever had?
My father had a heart attack, and I was visiting him in the hospital, and he'd been in a coma for 2 days, and the nurse said it didn't look good. I went into his room. We were allowed in for 2 minutes. And all of a sudden, I just heard myself saying, "You've got to live, Daddy, because I'm pregnant, and you've got to be a grandpa to the baby." I did not know I was pregnant until 3.5 weeks later. But something inside of me knew, told him. He woke up the next morning and told the nurse, I have to live. I'm going to be a grandpa. I think that was one of the most amazing things that happened to me, and one of the most satisfying.
Now, are you the only person in your family that is gifted?
I don't believe so. When I was very much younger, I went to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, and there's a room there from colonial America. Mm-hmm. And when I went into that room, I heard voices, and I had to leave. I was scared. When I took my daughter to the same room many, many years later, she said, can we please go? I don't like the whispers. That's my younger daughter. So, yes, I would say that we have this in my generation. We had it in my grandmother's generation, and my mother and I definitely had it. I'd come home from work exhausted, and she'd call up to ask what was wrong the minute I walked in the door. And this is after I was married. So I would say certainly the women in our family have this special gift of being attached to each other or being attached to something out there.
Now, why did you fictionalize the events in Imagics and other family stories?
As I said, a lot of these people were still alive, and they weren't necessarily represented in a complimentary way. Their children were alive, and I didn't want anybody feeling that I had insulted or hurt or gave away anything that they didn't want to have known. So I thought it was easier to fictionalize it, besides which I'm basically a writer, and I start out with what happened and then say what if. And so they became stories. Right now I'm working on a memoir, and I'll tell the truth of these stories eventually.
You know, it's funny because over the years doing this show, I've had the opportunity of speaking to so many authors who deal in fiction, and they all say it's much easier for them to get an idea across if it's classified as fiction and let the reader realize that what they are trying to put across as fiction is really reality.
I think that may be part of it too, but as a writer, I think I always want to improve on reality, and that's something a writer can do. Or you sort of play God with the actual incident.
Exonation, our very special guest this hour is Francine Trevens, and we're talking to Francine about paranormal activity, and she wrote a book entitled Stories of Fairies, Elves, and Little People. And what's that book all about?
Literally what it says. They were just stories, mostly of children and elves, or just among themselves, elves, leprechauns, trolls. I had just moved back to New York with my kids after a divorce. We needed money, and I was offered this opportunity to write a book for Waldman Publishing, and I said, okay. They gave me a choice of subjects, and this one appealed to me very much because when I was little, I definitely believed in fairies and elves, and I was a little people, so it became a title that I loved. Then I wrote a number of stories about these various characters, like a troll who's always supposed to be so nasty and mean, and he was a nice troll. And the trolls thought he was terrible because he was nice. That's not the way trolls are supposed to be. And what I was trying to do in it is let children know that you don't have to be what your father or mother were. You are who you are, and you make your own good fortune or bad fortune. That's how I came to write it.
Do you think that there are more people in society today who believe in the paranormal but keep that information hushed up inside of them because they don't want to appear to be silly to others who don't believe?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have a friend, and I went to visit her, and when I told her about some of the books I had written, she said when they moved into their house and start refurbishing it, there was a ghost. She saw the ghost at the top of the stairs, and her friend yelled up to the ghost, "Don't worry, we're not hurting the house, we're trying to restore it." The ghost nodded her head and moved on. So, yeah, if you start telling people some of the things that have happened to you, you find most people have had some experience along the way, and they're afraid to tell anyone. They're afraid of being laughed at. I think we all have paranormal powers, and I think most of us block it out or we get these sensations and say, oh, this is just my imagination, so I'm not going to tell anybody about this.
Has anyone ever contacted you to validate the authenticity of the stories that you write in Imagics?
No, but some people have called me to ask how much of it's true. Not call, but write, or when I see them at the people I know, how much of it is true. And I did at the beginning of the book mention some of what some things came from. When I lived in Danvers, Massachusetts, which was the original Salem village, I lived in an old house, and when I would go downstairs to the basement where the washing machine was, I always got feelings that there were people around me, and I was very uncomfortable. Fortunately, there was a door right to the outdoors from down there, and I opened that door whenever I went down because I just felt I might need a place to escape to. I never have seen a ghost. I've heard them. I've felt some bad things they've done. And I know that if we can get voices out of the air, as in telephones, if we can get messages out of the air, as in websites and television sets, why can't people leave their essence behind and their message behind as well?
You know, we've had on the show a gentleman whose name is Mark Macy, and he deals in ITC. And he's done extensive research into the exact thing that you and I are talking about, where people from the other side seem to communicate through telephones as well as television and computer screens, because they're able to hone in on the electromagnetic frequency and communicate.
Oh, well, they claim that people are made up of a lot of electricity, so why wouldn't we continue to have that electricity forever, the way you have your website forever?
You own your own publishing company. What's it like being a publisher in today's electronic age?
It's like hell. I don't believe in a real hell, but I believe in one when you're still alive, and boy, it's tough. It's very tough. Sometimes I think the computer has a mind of its own, and I'll be writing something and it won't write it. And sometimes it changes something, and it's proofreading is the real problem, to catch all the mistakes that you didn't know you'd made.
You mean the thesaurus and the spell check aren't really that dependable? Boy, am I in trouble.
Spell check's hopeless. If you rely on spell check, you're going to have more mistakes than you had to start with. It really takes the human eye and brain.
But you know, for the people who, let me try and explain this before I put my foot totally down my mouth, but down my throat with this one. For those people who just haven't got what it takes to present a manuscript to a publishing house, and even if they do, it gets rejected, the internet and self-publishing certainly is a tool that they use. In your opinion, as the owner of a publishing house, and as well as a highly recognized author, do you think that people who self-publish should be writing books?
I think everybody should express themselves in what other artistic way they can. And I publish a lot of authors other than myself. I only started publishing myself in the last 5 years, and I've been in publishing for 16 years. We got a lot of really bad manuscripts. We've got some that were very good but just didn't fit what we were trying to do. And yes, I think everybody should publish or paint or go on a stage and act if they can, because you get one life and you might as well live it as fully as you want to.
And you're here for a good time, not for a long time.
Right.
You and I have to take a commercial break. Please stand by. Francine Trevens is our special guest. We're talking to Francine about the paranormal. She's the author of Stories of Fairies, Elves, and Little People. We'll be back after the news. Don't go away. And now from the X-Zone Newsroom with this news flash, my name is Rob McConnell. These are psychic predictions from Elizabeth Joyce. Her website is www.new-visions.com. These are predictions for April 2010 world events. There is a danger around President Obama during the early part of 2010. Could be a helicopter accident, President Obama winds up in hospital before April's end. Laura Bush will suffer a health crisis as she begins divorce proceedings against George W. Bush. Lindsay Lohan will have a life threat which could lead to her passing away because of her drug problems. The coming food shortage begins in 2010 and continues through 2012. This will become a world crisis of epidemic proportions. The upsetting weather conditions continue. This is why we are encouraged to eat less as well as grow our own food. The financial picture remains stable. The March upset did not occur, thank goodness, but the energy returns in late May. Get your money out of the market by June and wait it all out. There's more volcanic activity as well as flooding and earthquakes in the Middle East. Syria, Turkey, and Iran could feel the shocks. And expect a tsunami to hit in the exact same place it did in 2004 at the tip of the southern India, possibly created from the aftershocks of the quakes in the Middle East. The British Indian Ocean Islands could disappear. BIOT is in both the eastern and southern hemispheres, just a few degrees south of the equator. It's positioned in the Indian Ocean, approximately 1,000 miles southwest of India. Well, so much for psychic predictions. We received these in the X-Zone newsroom yesterday, April the 4th, prior to that 7.2 magnitude earthquake that shook California and parts of Mexico yesterday. How come she missed this just hours prior to the earthquake? And it also reminds me of Pastor Harry, who predicted a meteorite or a comet would have a striking impact in the state of Utah in March. That never happened. It seems that the Bible code that Pastor Harry uses is as predictable as the psychics and their psychic predictions. As anticipated, we did receive a rebuttal from Elizabeth Joyce based on our emailing to the members of the X-Zone Nation. She said, "Hi Rob, like I said, the underground plates are moving. I have predicted an earthquake a month, and we are pretty close. We had volcanic eruption in March. I had said California would quake at the end of March, and there is more to come from that area, as well as Vesuvius in Italy and El Salvador. Yellowstone should erupt sometime in midsummer." Just putting this on the record. Well, I'm sorry. It's on the record, but disputed. For the X-Zone News, I am Rob McConnell.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Once in your life, you find her, someone who turns your heart around, and next thing you know, you're closing down the town. Wake up and it's still with you, even though you left your way across town. Wondering to yourself, hey, what have I found? When you get caught between the moon and New York City, I know it's crazy.
X-Zone, what can I tell you? You know, I love it when psychics put something in writing. So now we can all await with bated breath. Let me see, what were some of the other events? There's danger around President Obama during the early part of 2010. Could be a helicopter accident. Obama winds up in hospital before April's end. Okay, so she has...
There are 5 days for that.
Well, no, let's see, before the April's end. So what's that, 20 days, 25 days? Yeah. Laura Bush will suffer a health crisis as she begins divorce proceedings against George W. Did you know that their marriage was rocky? I didn't.
I don't think anybody knows it.
Lindsay Lohan, well, that's a no-brainer. She's,
Literally.
You said it. That was good. That was good. Oh, how about this one? The coming food shortage begins in 2010 and continues through 2012. This will become a world crisis of epidemic proportions. The upsetting weather conditions continue. This is why we are encouraged to eat less as well as grow our own food. Well, if the farmers are going to have a problem growing crops, how the hell are we going to do it?
Most of us could afford to eat less, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah exactly. Let me see. What was the final one was, oh, yeah. There's more volcanic activity as well as flooding and earthquakes in the Middle East. Syria, Turkey, and Iran could feel shakes. No mention whatsoever about yesterday's earthquake. Anyway, it's up for one and all to watch at www.xzonetv.com. Do you believe in psychics?
Yes, because I think, well, as I said, all of us have this small predictive power, and some have more so than others. But sometimes you get the vibes and you get the wrong.
Have you ever gone to a psychic for a psychic reading?
No, but I have personally, been in the kitchen washing dishes, and suddenly I turn off the water and I'll go to the phone, and before it even rings, I know who's going to be there, and I pick up the phone and they're there. Yeah. Or I'll think I haven't heard from somebody in a while, and I'll get an email 10 minutes later. So I feel that,
there's something
as I said, we all have slightly psychic powers. They may not be as predictive as or important as other people's.
You know, there's one ability that no one who's a parent can dispute, and that is the ability of a parent to know when something is wrong with one of their children.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I definitely had that with my daughter when my younger daughter was at camp, and I was gardening, and I heard her call me 3 or 4 times. I even looked up at the window. I thought, oh, I'm hearing things. I went back and did some more gardening, and she gave a shriek, and I went running up the stairs. Of course, she wasn't there. And 3 days later, I got a letter from the camp that she had suffered a mild concussion. She was perfectly all right. They didn't want to alarm me when it happened, and it was the exact time when I heard her calling me.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, parents, no, definitely.
I have to ask you, do you watch TV shows or films about paranormal experiences? And if so, how do you relate to them?
With an open mind, basically. I feel, as I said before, that there's a lot out there that we don't know about. And I enjoy medium. I enjoy ghost whisperer. I have not talked. Well, I did talk to a ghost. I talked to ghosts that are living here. But basically, I've never actually seen them, and they don't come to me for any help because I don't think I could help them. But I believe they're there. I believe that there are bad vibes in certain places, and there are good. And you as a parent, Rob, must certainly have had occasions where you sensed something was wrong with your child.
Many times, and this is why I believe this with all my heart, that parents are living proof that there is a connection, whether you want to call it ESP, whether you want to call it psychic ability, whatever. It is real with parents. But when psychics go out and do their little carniacs, and they charge people money for it. And when you get a psychic who actually says that, Mrs. George Bush is going to be facing a health crisis as she begins divorce proceedings against George W., that is scary.
Yeah, it is to me, because I think Laura is one of those women who would stick by her man no matter what he did, because she's just an old-fashioned, good-hearted woman.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. So to me, it's almost a nasty prediction, but if she saw it and she believes it, I don't believe in necessarily publishing predictions, because I think you put yourself on the line and you can make yourself look foolish.
The only reason we did what we did with that story was the fact that you're sending people out predictions, and the biggest prediction that you should have been able to see was right before your eyes, and you missed it. So this in my opinion, puts anything else that is being said into total jeopardy.
Well, I don't know. I mean, in everyday life, I mean, you plan certain things or do certain things. We all make errors, and I suppose psychics have a right to make errors too, or to misread what they think they're seeing or what they think they're hearing. So but I would never pay anybody for a prediction, because I get my own predictions. I wake up in the morning and feel something is off kilter, and later in the day I find out what it was. And you asked before about why I fictionalized what I wrote in the Imagics.
Yeah.
I fictionalize everything. I've got some plays and a new book that I just brought out called Short Plays to Long Remember, and 3 of the plays in there are mine, and all of them are based on things that actually happened with my family, but they're fictionalized, because you can have more leeway with fiction, and no matter how much of it is true, by saying it's fiction, those who might be inclined not to believe are more apt, as you said before, Rob, to believe, because it makes sense as fiction, where they might be afraid of it as fact.
I understand that you're also a published poet.
Oh, yeah. I've had 2 large collections of poetry published and gotten wonderful reviews on both of them. And I began as a poet. I mean, I wrote a poem before I could write. I was in the bathtub when I was just 6 years old and yelled for my mother to get me paper and pencil and come in right away, and she took down a poem, a ridiculous little 4-line poem about Easter. But, and I've been writing poetry and selling it since I was 12 years old, and that was my main interest at the beginning. But as the world expanded and I expanded, I went more into the stories and articles and novels and plays. So, can
you remember that 4-line poem that you wrote at 6?
Yeah, probably. Easter is a merry day. All the children like to play. Children dance. Children sing. Color eggs. Welcome spring.
Wow, at 6.
That was it. At 6. But my mother always read to me from Robert Louis Stevenson's Child's Garden of Verses, which I adored. And she tried reading to me from Stevenson's books, but I didn't like those because those were about boys. And she tried reading to me from Dickens, and I didn't like those because all the girls were stupid. So we went back to Robert Louis Stevenson's poems all the time. And in fact, I've introduced my grandchildren to them, and I have one grandson who's, I think, going to be a poet because he's writing poetry now at 11, and his teacher thinks his poetry is wonderful. So.
My next question to you is as Francine, the mum and grandmother, not Francine Trevens, the publisher, okay? How important is taking time to read to your children?
Vital. Most kids today get too much homework, and they think they hate books. By reading to them and reading with them, which is what I do with my kids, I'll read a page, and my older grandson will read a page, and then maybe my granddaughter will read a page, and then I'll read one again. And it makes the reading become a game, and it also makes it more alive for them. I think that if you don't introduce children very early to some sort of literature, they're losing a great part of their youth. They're spending too much time with video games that don't require brains, but just require that you gobble up every enemy. And they end up thinking that you can keep gobbling up enemies and the enemies will keep coming back and forget what life really is about. So I think reading to or with kids, I couldn't imagine not having been read to as a kid or not reading to or seeing my kids read to their children.
All right, now this question is to Francine Trevens, the publisher. With all the new electronic applications that are coming out now, we've got the Kindle, we've got the new Apple Pad that came out.
And Barnes & Noble came out with the Nook.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are thousands of them.
Is this an asset to you as a publisher?
I haven't used it yet, but I'm going to use it for this new book of short plays because my own daughter, my younger daughter, who also writes, got a Kindle, and she thinks it's the greatest thing on earth because she can download all these books, and wherever she is, she's not carrying around a pile of books, but she can read something and enjoy it, even if it's only 3 pages while she's waiting in line. And since she has to tote books back and forth from school because she's a teacher, she'd rather not have to carry hard books. And so the new book, Short Place to Long Remember, is going to become an e-book probably next fall. And you get less money from an e-book as a publisher, but in the long run, it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
Once it's out there, it's out there. And I have one friend who publishes everything he does on e-books, and he says he makes more money as a result because a lot of people go out and they buy the hardcover book to give to a friend.
But
so it's an asset to publishers.
But what about a new author who decides to publish everything electronically? How does he make money?
I don't really know unless he goes through one of the bigger companies. But they all want you to publish it hardcover, not hardcover, but paper first, and then go on to the e-book thing. But I don't know how the other ones do it because I'm not into that field very much. You
and I have to take our final break. Francine Trevens is our special guest. Her website is www.tntclassicbooks.com. That's tntclassicbooks.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as we do our wrap-up for tonight, Monday, April the 5th in the year 2010. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Don't go away.
In the word, you can light up the dark. Try as I may, I can never explain what I hear when you don't.
Welcome back, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking all our guests tonight, and what a great time we had. We started off with David Tippie. We were talking about health. Peter Kling and I were discussing the end times and letters to Earth, how to avoid Armageddon. Cyan Rose Jensen shared her tragic story of the homicide of her daughter and the paranormal events that surrounded it. And, how she's doing a book now with a playwright, and the last 5 chapters of the book are actually being done by the person who murdered her daughter, who knew her for the last period of time in her life. And my guest this hour is Francine Trevens. We've been talking to Francine about everything about publishing, about the books she's written on the paranormal, stories of fairies, elves, and little people, and Imagics. And if you'd like more information on Francine, her website is www.tntclassicbooks.com. That's www.tntclassicbooks.com. Francine, you said during the commercial break that people really do not need psychics, that they can have more confidence if they just listen to themselves.
I really believe that. I believe that there's a little voice inside of us, whether it's Jiminy Cricket or somebody else, that pretty much tells us when we're going off the beaten path or when something's going to happen, and if we just follow our instincts. I remember when I went for my first job in New York for a publisher, and it was McFadden Publishers, and it was True Love Stories, and one of the questions the woman asked me, the editor, Meg Kelly, said, how long have you been reading confession magazines? I said, I've never read one in my life. And if anybody would say that's the wrong thing to say, but she was delighted that I was honest. I was also told I couldn't get the job unless I had graduated college, and I had left college without graduating. And she said to me, "Did you really graduate college?" And I said, "Well, it says that I did on the application because I was told I had to have, but I didn't, and I got the job."
Honesty is the best policy.
Not always, but in that case, I kind of knew that she sensed that it wasn't true, and why pretend that it was?
Francine, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight here on the X Zone. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Continued success. And I look forward to talking to you the next time you and I meet here in the X Zone.
Okay. Best of luck to you and to the show.
Thank you very much, dear. Bye-bye. Francine Trevens, www.tntclassicbooks.com. That's www.tntclassicbooks.com. Well, that's it for tonight, everyone. I'd like to thank our producers and all the affiliates who carry the X Zone around the world. And I'd like to thank you, the members of the X Zone, for allowing us to be part of your day, your night, no matter where you are in this great big world of ours. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. So as I say as often as I can, if you have a child at home, give them a hug, give them a kiss, let them know they are loved, because the children of today are the leaders of tomorrow. And yes, X Zone, we do and are supposed to take care of each other. So until tomorrow night, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night now.